What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Check-In with Black Menswear right here on the Revolt Podcast Network. I'm excited about today's conversation. We were having a little bit of conversation before we came on camera here. I got my guy Nate Cottman with me, a.k.a. From Nate with Love. What's up, my brother?
Let's go.
Man, look, so I'm going to start out with a very direct question for you.
Okay.
Right? Your name is From Nate with Love.
Yes.
What does love even mean?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. Love is, I do believe that love is a choice. I believe that love is a commitment. I believe that love is also charity. And so when you combine all those things together and you present that to someone, I believe that we're actually loving them, right? I believe that love is sacrifice, or that it requires sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And so you really can't gauge how much somebody really loves until you see their willingness to sacrifice.
You know, that's a loaded word, right? The L word, the four-letter word that drives a lot of people crazy, but also helps to drive a lot of people together.
Sure.
And when we think about Nate Cottman, right, I want to go back to how we got here, right? How did we get from, I like to say, you're like Justin LeBoy, but with respect.
Yo, you know what's so crazy? You know what's so crazy? My boys say the same thing. They're like, yo, you're like the loving version of Justin LeBoy.
The wholesome version, the
That's
version that won't get you beat up. But you know, how did we get here, right? How did you? What was the turning point for you that made you fall into this space of really appreciating what love is versus a lot of brothers I know, they kind of run from it, if that makes sense?
Yeah. It was a lot of pain. A lot of pain and a lot of failure around the space of love. So I was married for 5 years. I was a horrible husband.
Okay.
So that's a part of it, and we'll get back to that in just a second. So I was a horrible husband, was not proud of the man that I was in a marriage, or that version of myself, right? Mm-hmm. So that happened back in 2021 is when we divorced. 2022, my dad died. Mm-hmm. It was July of 2022, 4 days before his birthday, he passed. I was with him the day that he died. Mm-hmm. And I remember, after those experiences, so you have two life-changing experiences that happened essentially a year from each other, I began to sit back and say, man, I want to show up in the world differently. Yep. Right? Like, this is not the version of the man that I am right now is not the version of the man that I want to be. And so I remember, like around that time, maybe a few months later, reaching out to my ex-wife, reaching out to my mentor at the time, having a conversation with them, confessing everything that I had done in my marriage, and just begin this process towards wholeness, right? Yeah. Begin this process towards like just cleaning out the closet of my skeletons and showing up in a more authentic way, regardless of like judgment, fear, shame, all of those things. In the midst of that, maybe a little bit prior to like actually having that conversation with my ex-wife and my mentor at the time, I remember I began to go on social media and just post like things from my heart, like videos from my heart, talking about my journey, talking about my failures as a man, talking about my pain, talking about the value that I actually have in women, or for women, I would say. And that kind of catapulted this journey because those videos and some of the things that I began to post began to go viral, right? Mm-hmm. And I just began to post more of that from an outflow of who I was at the time.
Man, like I like the word you use from really finding like the wholeness of who we are, and especially as men. You know, I was telling you, I was excited to have this conversation because, you know, I've been married for 11 years and love.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
That's an accomplishment.
I appreciate that. And shout out to my beautiful wife because she puts up with everything that I do. But the wholeness that I actually got out of our relationship, that I know that kind of like guys, we don't really like, for some reason we want to have this hard shell about love and man, I don't love these, you know, like there's this misconception that love is like for like weak people. And But I was also listening. My boy Jake, shout out Jake, was on Dear Wifey podcast, had a men's panel for Juneteenth weekend.
Sure.
And on there, he combated this stigma that men lose when they get married. Because I feel like, man, I won. But that also comes back to, again, this perspective of that men shouldn't love or can't love. Like, what are your thoughts around that misconception around men, especially black men, and loving our partners, loving each other, loving ourselves?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a misconception that that love is a sign of weakness, that we lose in marriage, right? Here's the thing, man. We weren't designed to be alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Period.
And there is something to be said about two people getting together and building a legacy together. You know, a man's ability to focus, right? Because a lot of times dealing with multiple women will divide your focus.
That's true.
Right? And so when you're building something, having the ability to focus on one woman is a beautiful thing. And then also finding ways to love the same woman in multiple ways is actually a sign of strength. Right? You have to become creative. You have to dig into yourself. You have to lay down your pride and coexist with someone and love them completely, you know. And so it's definitely not a sign of weakness. It's actually a beautiful thing. And I want to say this to you too. I love the way that you show up in the world around the space of like marriage and family. Like a lot of times I'll go to your social media page and I'll see like you know, the way that you esteem your relationship, but then not only that, the way that you interact with your kids. There's a video that I have in the back of my mind where you guys are like jumping around in the living room and just having fun and doing all those things, you know, and that is the mark of true manhood, right? To be able to lead and nurture a family in a way that is healthy for the whole, right? So yeah, there's definitely a negative stigma. It's almost like the same stigma that's associated with vulnerability. People look at vulnerability as a sign of weakness, and love requires vulnerability. And I believe that as men, when we can tap into the concept of masculine vulnerability, and we're willing to let down the wall, open our heart, allow ourselves to risk being hurt for the sake of having something beautiful, I believe that the family flourishes in that process.
Man, you speak from a space of wisdom. I'm gonna ask you a hard question.
Let's go.
Why'd your marriage fail?
Yo, I was a horrible husband.
Okay.
I was a horrible husband. Here's the deal, right? We move very, very quickly, and that works for some people. You know, that works for some people. I've heard of people dating 6 months and then they get married. For us, we dated less than a year before we got married, and a part of that was long distance, right? I would say 3 months into dating, we got engaged. That's on me, right? Because a man sets the relational pace. A woman sets the sexual pace, but a man sets the relational pace. 3 months into dating, we got engaged. Less than a year into dating, we got married. We were two strangers coexisting in a home, right? First year of my marriage, I felt like, man, maybe I made the wrong decision, right? It could have been that, or maybe I wasn't really prepared for the responsibility of marriage, right? So first year, the way that I processed it, though, was I made the wrong decision. I didn't process it like, Nate, you have to become better. You have to grow as a man. You have to develop, right? So it could have been a part of that. By year 3 of our marriage, we were sleeping in separate bedrooms. So we were roommates at that point, essentially, right? For the most part, right? There were some times where we would sleep in the same bed, but for the most part, we had a 2-bedroom apartment at the time. I slept in one, she slept in the other. Whenever we have disagreements, we would go sleep in separate rooms. Right? Over a period of time, that's going to break down the fabric of the relationship. Within that last 2-year period, I began to have side conversations, you know, side meetups, different things like that. Some sexual impropriety, and I just didn't want to be there anymore. Right. And so I was actually the one who filed for divorce. And then a year later, and I know we talked about this on camera a little bit, but a year later, I ended up reaching back out to her and confessing, right? Because in that last 2-year period, right, you would imagine she's beginning to suspect some things. She's beginning to feel some things, right? And so there's some gaslighting going on there. Like, no, what you're thinking is not what it is, when in actuality it was, right? And so I think a part of taking responsibility for a failed marriage is taking accountability for the part that you play in the demise of the marriage, right? And so that was my part, right? And there are other things, right? There are things that I could talk about in terms of her side of it, right? But as a man, it's my responsibility to take. I was the one most at fault. I was the one to blame for the breakdown of the marriage, and ultimately, I was the one to walk away. You know, I don't think I've ever talked about that. Oh, yes, I have. I have on a podcast that I had that I did. I talked about that maybe a little bit more in detail.
But I think the thing that to really understand there, I mean, you're able to see and pinpoint, so that way, you know, I'd imagine you want to be married again, just
100%.
from, right? And so, but you're able to look at a failed relationship, take lessons from that, and turn that into, all right, so I can make sure that I'm ready for my future wife. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I think that when a relationship or a marriage breaks down, we have to identify the part that we played in that process. How can I become better from this, right? How can I extract beauty from ashes, right? How can all things really turn out for the good of those that, you know, love God and are called according to his, you know, his purpose? How can all things work together, right? Well, part of that is taking a large amount of accountability and responsibility for the part that we play. And I believe that when we do that, we're on the road to healing. When we deflect, when we place blame, when we put it all on the other person and say it was all them and not me, then we are keeping ourselves in a prison of our own, you know, demise, really.
Yeah.
So for me, a part of that healing journey, and this is for anybody who's kind of on a journey of healing, is to identify the part that we play in whatever the issue is, right? Even if you're not the one that's most at fault.
Don't matter.
You know, one of the things that I like to ask people when they begin to talk about a relationship, and this causes me to be able to identify where they are in their process, because we're all at different stages, right? When somebody's maybe complaining to me about a relationship that didn't work out, I always ask them, no, I feel that. What part would you say you played in that, right?
Right.
Or I'll ask them, how do you feel you could have been better in that relationship? And a lot of times, what most people do is they place the blame back on the other person.
Right.
They were just a narcissist. They were cheating. They were da-da-da-da-da. Okay. I mean, I'm not refuting that that's the case.
Right.
But how do you feel you could have been better, right? Part of that could have been, man, I could have made a decision to end the relationship earlier. Maybe a part of that is I tolerated way too much.
Yeah.
Maybe a part of that was, and this is a big one, I didn't listen to my intuition. I trusted what they had to say about the situation over what my intuition was trying to protect me from, right? These are all things that we can identify and begin to break down and say, you know what, I could have been better in this particular, you know, relationship in this way.
Yeah. That's a you know, when you think about me owning up to my own stuff, that's a hard thing for people to do, no matter what the aspect is. On the job, why didn't that project go well? Because they didn't. What did you do? What could you have done? I think one of the things that helped me as well in my relationship, we had a rough patch early on. Like we did 3 years long distance.
Whew, that's
3
tough,
years long
bro.
distance, man. And
was it tough for you?
It was and it wasn't.
Okay.
So it was obviously because my love language is physical touch, just like most men.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood.
right.
You want to be
But,
close.
Yeah, I want you to be right here.
Understood.
You know what I mean? But this is a time where video Skype is just getting started. We're talking about, you know, I met my wife in 2010.
Right.
We dated 2010, 2011, 2012, all on Skype.
Right.
But every day we're together.
Right.
So the distance, yes, it was a part that I couldn't physically be there with you to touch you, but I saw you every day.
Right.
So, you know, obviously FaceTime nowadays, and this is pre-FaceTime. I feel like I'm
know.
older, right? So, you know, but the ability for us to connect was there, right?
Sure.
So that's why it wasn't hard.
Right.
And we were both in stages. She was finishing law school. I was starting my career. And so, you know, some of that separation was good for us to get footholds in who we are, right?
Sure.
But the best thing about it, so once we got married, 6 months into our marriage, pregnant, right? So 3 years of being long distance, we're finally together.
Oh yeah,
getting married,
it was
and it's baby time.
Yeah.
And baby 1 came, baby 2 came right after that. 4 months later, we're pregnant again. Well, at that point, it became hey, I'm here. You remember me? Hey, I'm here. It's like, nah, babies,
Yeah.
And that time, like, just husband and wife, there was disconnect there.
Yeah.
And what I realized during that period of rockiness was that, first of all, it ain't about you. It's about us. And if I'm being selfish in this moment, thinking about, I'm not getting what I want and all these kind of things, but bro, you got 2 babies that you put in her. Right? Now I got to take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
Because
He said that was all me. Yeah.
And so
well, nobody else but me, right?
Correct. Like now I got to live with this consequence.
Yeah.
Not consequence, like, but the consequence of that action.
No, yeah. And not from a negative standpoint.
Correct.
But yeah, it's a consequence of
that. And so, me having to look in the mirror at that point because she's telling me about myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like I'm doing this alone. What you mean doing this alone? Well, I feel like I'm doing this alone. And for her to tell me stuff like that, and for it to go in one ear out the other because I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm the man and this is what I need and all these kind of things.
For sure.
We go through this period and I get a book that's called The 5 Love Languages. Mm-hmm. And at this
Gary
point,
Chapman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, at this point, I'm going through this, and I'm like, oh, because after every chapter, it's questions, and within these questions in the book, it's asking you, so what are her love languages? I was like, oh, it's not the same as mine.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And like for me, that was a turning point in understanding my partner, to where now I know the only way I can love her is to love her in her love language, versus just loving her in my love language, and it doesn't mean anything. Hers, physical touch, she's like, get off me.
Yeah.
But hers is quality time, acts of service, right?
Washing the dishes.
Without being like, hey, babe, I washed the dishes. Aren't you proud of me?
Right, exactly.
It's like, no, just doing these things. But once I was able to really understand that, and I think that's a journey that a lot of men need to go on if you have a spouse or a partner or someone that you're looking for, because that helped me to understand a lot of the arguments we were having. Well, it's because I've filled up my emotional bank with all these things that are positive for me, but her emotional bank is still empty because all of the affirmations that I've given her, she don't care about that.
That's not words of affirmation.
It's not. And so, what's your take on really understanding how to love each other from that perspective, and your viewpoint of those 5 love languages?
Oh, I think understanding the 5 love languages, I feel like it's important. If I speak Chinese and you speak French, and I'm telling you I love you in Chinese,
right,
and you don't understand Chinese, right, you're gonna be frustrated. I'm telling you that I love you, but I'm speaking Chinese.
Yep.
If you speak French and you're telling, not me, right, but I'm just saying you're telling someone in general, right, that you love them, but you're saying it in French, and they don't speak French, you might be frustrated because you're like, I'm telling you that I love you, but you're speaking a language that they don't understand.
Yeah.
5 love languages is the same way, right? If my love language is words of affirmation, and your love language is quality time, and I'm telling you that I love you, but you really just want to spend time, then there's going to be a disconnect. Here's the thing. Here's what I can tell you. I definitely think it's important to prioritize that person's love language. I also think that it's important to love them in every one of the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
Therefore, you make sure that you cover all your bases.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
But I definitely think that it's important to prioritize the love language of the person that you're involved with. And then for them to prioritize the love language that is most important to you.
Right.
And that's the way that we make sure that that each person feels love.
It's balance, right?
Yeah.
It's balance. It's the give and take. I remember I was getting married. So I got married at 24, right before I turned 25.
Man, you were young.
And but like now I look at them like I'm 35, but about to be 36. I got a 9-year-old about to be 10. I got an 8-year-old about to be 9. I'm on the back half.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? My
exactly.
kid's about to be out the house here pretty soon.
Right.
And wifey and I can go into this retirement phase at an earlier point.
Right.
But in that I remember always like, boy, you too young for that. At what point do men mature to where it's like, you're not too young for that. You are who you are. You've met who you've met. and there's this growth that you're gonna see because you're gonna grow, lady. I was listening to we had a guest speaker this Sunday at church, and she got on stage and she was talking more so to the women, but it hit me too. She said, you don't marry the person that you're with today, you're marrying who they are going to be. And I think that's the same way, you know, when they used to say that all the time, but you ain't ready for that. And I'm like, I'm not ready for a lot of things in life, honestly, but what's the point of running a rat race and seeing the same thing every day but not growing into it? Then at that point, am I wasting time, right? What's your thought on this aspect of wasting time in a relationship? And I know women give men a lot of ultimatums. Like, not all of them, but, you know, you hear about the horror stories. Like, man, shoot, we was together for 10 years. She's like, if you don't marry me, I'm gone. I was like, 10 years? Yeah. That's half your life. You know, at that point, what's your thought on that basis around, you know, growing into a person, time around those kind of things? Yeah. Obviously, everything is for every person that's different, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I would definitely say that it really depends on the person. And the reason why it depends on the person, now I don't recommend for anybody to be in a relationship 10 years without, you know, a commitment of marriage. You know, I think at a certain point, you know, I would say anything past like 2 years, you know, as far as like dating, getting to know someone, you may be putting yourself in a little bit of a danger zone because you may slip into a phase of like comfort. In terms of age, though, to answer your question about age specifically, it depends on the person because different people mature at different rates. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I would imagine that you were a mature 24-year-old. Yeah. I'm just assuming that, right? Fair. You know what I'm saying? You're a mature, 35? You're 35? Yeah. You're a mature 35-year-old, right? So you strike me as the type of person that's ahead of your time and ahead of your years. I know 24-year-olds that should not get married. True. Right? A man really begins to stabilize and come into his own in his 30s. Yeah. Right? And so there's this idea that a man should really begin to settle down and like focus on marriage in his 30s when his career is stable and different things like that. But like I said, that can happen earlier depending on where the man is in his life. In his 20s, there are some men that just get it and they desire marriage in their 20s. So I think it just depends. It depends on the person, the couple, and where they are in their journey. Yeah. Because some people just get it earlier than others. Yeah. But I don't recommend people being in long-term relationships for an indefinite amount of time without that expectation of marriage. And I think that we should begin to shift from the idea of dating to moving into a space of courting earlier. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because courting sets the intention and says, I plan to marry you. We are pacing towards marriage. Maybe we need to sit down and do some therapy together. Right. Maybe we need to look at how compatible we are, right? It's not about chemistry because you can have chemistry with anybody. Yeah. Maybe we need to begin to look at compatibility metrics, right? What do we both want? And then based upon what we both want, what are we willing to sacrifice for the whole of what the relationship would benefit from? Yeah. You know? Yeah. What are some goals that we can put in place that we can pace towards together? Right? Yeah. Because sometimes that passion and some of those things fade away in moments, but is there a vision that you have for the relationship that will keep you guys together, even when you guys may not be seeing eye to eye as far as passion and chemistry are concerned? Right?
Vision is important, right?
It is. Yeah. So having a relational vision, you know, what do we want to accomplish together? What do we want our family to look like? What is our legacy? You know, those things are really important. And so when you begin to court, you court with that intentionality in mind. Yeah,
man, I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, right. It's very important that you have brothers who you can have these conversations with, right? And I'm just take a quick little pause here. Black Men's Summit, Black Menswear, Black Wealth Renaissance, Surf Forth events. Black Men Can. We do this event in Atlanta called the Black Men's Summit. Yes. And this year's Black Men's Summit is September 20th and 21st in Atlanta, Georgia. Dope. And we are highlighting a celebration of brotherhood, right? We want to celebrate what it's like to have a room full of homies that are elevating together. Yes. Within that space, though, it's important that brothers can have conversations, right, to where I can talk with you about the relationship that I'm in, and you're not like, man, fuck that, let's go to these streets.
Right,
like,
exactly. No. We gotta shift that mindset, right?
I gotta be able to have somebody to hold me accountable in a good way, right? For you, man, like, do you have, you know, it's, you know, you come in here, you talk all soft, and you make
funny.
the ladies think that you know this and that, like, but like, do you have brothers that you can then bounce these moments of the heart off of? And how important is it to have those kind of brothers that you can then talk to about relationship stuff?
Yeah, I do. And one that I'm going to shout out is my boy Drew. My boy Drew, he's been married a number of years, solid guy. He's known me probably for 15 plus years. And he's somebody that, you know, when things are going on with the relationships, I really honor his perspective on a lot of different things. And we don't always talk often, but when we do, it's always a very deep, vulnerable conversation. And so I appreciate that. Another one of my brothers, his name is Dre, and he kind of holds me accountable. You know what I'm saying? And if there's something going on with the relationship, you know, he'll tell me how he feels about it, honestly. Yeah. You know, whether it's something I want to hear or not.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's important. And then, you know, also having mentors and people who have been largely successful in the area of relationships, right? I believe that we can have people that we go to that serve different purposes in our lives, right? You might have somebody that you go to that's a mentor in business, and they make sure that, you know, the ideas that you have are ideas that are wise, and if they're not, they'll let you know, like, I don't think that you should do that right now. I think the same is true for relationships. We should identify people who have been successful in the space of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And lean on them for their wisdom and their advice when it comes to that particular area that we want to grow in. I heard somebody say, never take advice from someone who you wouldn't want to trade spaces with in that particular area.
Yeah.
It's not that what they have to say may not be valid, right? But would you want to trade spaces with them, right? It's also funny because I don't consider myself to be a relationship expert, right?
Gotcha.
I'm somebody who just shares my story, and I also believe in the beauty of love, and so I paint pictures of what beautiful love and healthy love looks like because I believe in it, right? But I don't consider myself to be a relationship expert.
For sure.
Right?
Well, I'm going to ask you a question as a relationship expert.
Okay.
What's the worst piece of relationship advice you've ever received?
The worst piece of relationship advice that I've ever received? You know, so, and I know that this may be controversial when I say it, but because I know that different people have different perspectives around, like, polygamy and different things like that, right? In a space where I desire to have a committed relationship with one woman and build a legacy. I've been told before, like, why would you want to do that? Just have women that serve different purposes in your life. You know, have a woman that you maybe go home to, and that's the person that is the homemaker, and then have somebody on the side that's the freak, and have somebody else on the side that, you know, maybe you can get money with. And so the advice was bad for me because it's not what I desire for my life.
Right, straight up.
That advice may apply to somebody else who desires that for their life. And, you know, everybody has to live with the decisions that they make. But in a space where I'm letting you know that what I desire is monogamy and to build a family and to build a legacy. Yeah. And for you to give me advice saying, no, don't do that, have women that serve different purposes in your life, that's just not the advice for me. Yeah. So to me, that was not good advice.
I've heard that too, and a lot of times
it's popular
I hear
too.
It is rising popular, right, and I'm gonna ask Erica that question next time you see me. My eye gonna be swollen. No,
play if you want.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Play if you want. Play if you want. But you know, I think that there's a lot of that comes to social media, right? Social media tells us, and this is just access to information. It's funny when you think about when we were younger, the access to information you got was in a book. Right, so you got to go in a book. You got to go to the library. You have to physically go somewhere and get it. Then the internet came about. I remember the internet probably came about like I was, middle school. Now I started surfing the internet.
Yep.
Right, seeing stuff that's different, like, oh, okay, now you have better access to information. I mean, now, both of my sons have phones, and they're 8 and 9, right? So they got the information right here.
Right.
You don't always have great information right here, but you have access to information. And we talk about this social media, the social media space, and it's just telling you, granted, to your point, to each his own. Live how you want to live. If it works for you, it works for you. But I think now we're in a space to where a lot of people are so impressionable that they just, I'm going to try this.
For sure.
And I'm going to go this route. And then like, you miss out on what could have been beautiful because you go down a path of, let me try this out. It'll work for this person. It's going to work for me. For sure. And that doesn't always, work out that way.
100%. I agree. I think social media is like the gift and the curse, right? Because, and then not only that, but social media has created experts that are not qualified.
Yeah, that's true.
To be that.
That's
right?
true.
And so that's the reason why I always try to like lead with the statement like, oh no, I'm not a relationship expert. I just talk about the beauty of love. I paint a picture. There's the red pill, there's the blue pill community. I'm not interested in either side of the coin. I'm not interested in having conversations about who's right and who's wrong, the man or the woman. Right. I'm interested in painting a picture of like unity when it comes to relationships, harmony when it comes to relationships, the beauty of love. And you see a lot of stuff that I post, right? I think a recent post that I posted was, I'm not interested in competing, right? The only competition that I want to be in is who can outlove the other person better. Just stuff like that. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I just desire to put that type of energy out into the atmosphere.
That's also, and going into like why relationships work, it should not be me versus you. It should be me plus you.
100%.
And I also saw something where it's like a relationship isn't 50-50, it's 100-100.
Yes.
And because when there's 50-50, there's 50% for somebody else to get.
100%.
It should be 100% I'm all in here, and we're both all in. But, the thing that and I go back to when I was getting ready to propose to Erica, and there was this thing, I was having a conversation because actually, me, my LB Mario, my boy Brian, we all got married, and we're all the same age. We all got married within a year of each other.
Wow.
And we're all still married. And the thing about it, though, when people, talking with us, and we all met our lady in college and these things, and there was this thing around, man, I just can't. Somebody said I just can't compromise myself to be with somebody else who doesn't see things I do the way I do. And I had to look up the word compromise really at that time to understand a compromise isn't me not being who I am. Yeah. A compromise is me taking the pieces on the table and turning it into a puzzle that fits together. To where some of that ain't even relevant. Like, that's not a compromise of how you put the cap on a toothbrush.
For sure.
Or the toothpaste, like, if that's what's going to end our relationship because I can't stand the way you put the cap on the toothpaste, I shouldn't be married anyway, or in a relationship anyway.
Exactly.
But really just understanding, like, the fact that compromise is when two people come together and they put it all on the table, and then some of the stuff you sift out, like, that's not really important. That's really what I understood about compromise. Like, to you, does that word compromise have like a negative connotation, a positive, perspective? What do you think when it says that people in relationships compromise to have a better relationship?
I think compromise is a beautiful thing, and I even like to look at it from a perspective of collaboration. So we're working, if we're in business and we're working with each other, we're in a room and we're trying to figure some things out. And I have an opinion about something, and you have an opinion about something, and they differ. Okay. How can our ideas collaborate? I may take a piece of what you think, and take a piece of what I think, and we put it on the table. There's a part of what we think that we'll have to discard for now, in order to make the business relationship work. Yeah. Right. I think in romantic relationships, it's the same thing. Yeah. It's the same way. Yeah. Right. How can we exist in harmony with each other? What can I take from how you feel, and what can I take from how I feel, and what can we create together? Yeah. based upon those perspectives. That's the only way that relationships work. And here's the deal, right? A healthy relationship requires a dying of self.
That's good.
Right now,
That's good.
for people who are people of faith, there's a verse that says, "Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church,
Yeah.
and He gave Himself for her." Right, and so we know that Jesus died.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we want to talk about a woman being a Proverbs 31 woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so as men, we want to harp on that. She needs to be a Proverbs 31 woman. She needs to be virtuous, right? But there's a responsibility that we have to die, and we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
A lot of being in a healthy relationship means that there's a part of my own will, my own perspective, what I want, the vision that I have for my life, the desire that I have for my relationship, what I want them to do. There's a part of that has to die in order for the whole of the relationship to live.
Yeah.
And I believe that a part of that dying is compromising.
You said a lot there, especially on that the verse perspective, right? Because everybody likes to say, "Wives, submit yourselves to your husband."
right.
They don't complete it. Yeah, they don't complete it. It's like, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church.
Yes.
It gave itself for it. So like that's a that's a very important piece of it. But that also comes back to that there's a balance, right? We talk about the balance, and I love really understanding and knowing that balance. I'm gonna shift just a little bit off of that balance. I want to know what your DMs look like.
Let's talk about it.
I know your DMs popping, bro. And from good and bad. I'm sure you got some DMs that like, did I read that right?
Yeah.
Like, what is, as a man who speaks love and puts love into the atmosphere, bro, what do your DMs really look like?
Yeah, for sure. So can I be transparent?
Come on, man.
Okay, so when I first began to go viral, I actually began to go viral on TikTok first.
Okay.
And so I remember when I was at like a little 10,000, I had like 10,000 followers on TikTok, and it felt good. It's just like, oh man, I got 10,000. And I remember there was a girl that had like 100,000 followers on TikTok, and we connected like in the DM, and I flew her out to Dallas. And I remember after that, I'm like, man, I done all this work on myself, and now I'm flying somebody out to Dallas to, whatever.
Yeah.
After that experience, which is an experience I enjoyed. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, it was definitely an experience I enjoyed. After that experience, I was just like, I don't want to be this person. Like, I don't want to, because where does it stop?
Yeah.
I could go and cherry pick whoever I want,
right,
and fly them in, and we do whatever. Where does it stop?
Yeah.
I have too much access. So after that, I made a commitment to myself that I would not leverage my platform to connect with women, to like hook up with women, right? I made that commitment to myself. Fast forward, my Instagram ended up going viral after that. And so, like you said, my DMs can be a fun place, if that's what you're looking for. If that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to be known for that.
Yeah.
So, there are times where I will read the message. It might be a little flattering. It might appeal to my ego, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, I don't engage.
Okay. I like that,
engage,
man. A brother with boundaries.
Or I'll deflect. Right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't engage. And then there are some messages that come through. There are a lot of messages that come through where people are being vulnerable and they're sharing their heart and different things that they're going through, and those are really beautiful. You know, so those can be really cool. I also think that although I get a lot of stuff in my DMs, I feel like a lot of women look at me as like somebody that they would want to build a relationship with. And so there's a little bit of a different level of respect that they may approach me with, as opposed to if I was Justin LeBoy. Nothing against Justin LeBoy at all. I'm just saying that I think that the approach is a little bit different because they're actually wanting to present themselves to me as a potential wife.
For sure.
And then there are people in my DMs that just want to have fun.
Yeah.
And so So it's cool. But the DMs that I'm most excited about is when my brothers reach out to me and they tell me how the content has impacted them. When my brothers reach out and they're just like, man, like, bro, I went through the same thing in my marriage, man, and I appreciate you having the courage to tell your story. Like, those are the messages, man, that have a little bit more weight to them. Because you expect women to hit on you and to do that, and that happens. But when I get those messages from my brother, man, I'm just like, okay, I feel like I'm in my zone.
Nah, I love that, man. That's a true brotherhood, right? And utilizing your platform for what it's meant for versus the savage.
Yeah, for sure. Because it could get real crazy. Y'all pray that I keep this mindset, savage, okay? Yeah. Y'all pray that I don't go through a crazy type of situation that turns me into an animal.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Oh, man. I want to ask you, and we're coming to a close here. I want to ask you about the community you're building, right? And I know currently right now you got a wait list.
Yes.
What can people expect within that community? Why would they want to tap in? What can they get from there?
Man, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be weekly inspiration. We'll do some live sessions every week in our private community, where people are able to ask questions. They're able to grow in their emotional, spiritual, financial, relational wellness, right? And so, as a black man, being able to lead a community like this, I'm really excited about it. You know, a safe place for people to come and be vulnerable and to grow in their ability to show up in the world in a different way.
Yeah.
So that's what people can expect. We'll do live events, coaching calls. I'll bring in guest speakers. You'll have to be one that we bring in, man, to talk about a few things. But I'm excited about building this community. It's something that people have been asking for, and for a long time, for me, I didn't feel like I was ready to do it for a long time, right? Because I'm still on my own journey,
right.
You know. But people are now looking to me and saying, we want this from you.
Yeah.
We can go other places to get it, but we want this from you. And so I want to be able to impact people's lives in this way.
I love it, man. Well, I got a few questions, and this is actually sponsored by the Black Menswear community on the school platform. Brothers looking for brotherhood, looking for elevation together amongst men, man. Go to school, find us on the school community. I've got a little quick segment here. It's called This or That.
Okay.
Right, this is what we're going to wrap up with.
I got you.
All right, this or that. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
I've actually never been on a mountain retreat, so I'm going to say mountain retreat.
Reading a book or watching a movie?
Reading a book.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
City life or country living?
City life.
Summer or winter?
You know, actually, I think, hold on, let me go back to that last one. I think historically it's been city life, but I think that I'm shifting to a phase where it's country life.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
That peace.
Yeah,
that
100%,
peace, yeah.
man, that quiet. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear some birds chirping.
Yeah, sure. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Sweet or savory?
Savory. I'm a foodie.
Work from home or work in an office?
Work from home.
Concerts or sports events?
Sports events. Ooh, that's tough, but sports events, yeah.
Sports events. Y'all, we're here. The man, Nate Cottman, a.k.a. From Nate with Love. Nate, tell them how to follow you, how to reach you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Connect with me on Instagram, From Nate with Love, TikTok, From Nate with Love. You'll find all the information about the community that's launching on the page in the bio. So connect with me there.
You guys are tuned in with us for another great episode, Brother to Brother, to check in with Black Menswear. I hope something that's been said you can tap into. I hope something that's been said leads you back to letting this brother know and giving him that positive feedback that he likes to receive on, hey, bro, I was in the same situation, same circumstance, and what you said really helped me to understand where I am on my journey, right? And so with that, Nate, we appreciate you, brother. You guys share this out, subscribe to the channel, but don't let some of the words of positivity that you heard today that implanted themselves in you stay within you. Don't be stingy. Share the message. We'll tap in with y'all later.